Good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Friedman Quinn, the Adult Programming Associate here at Wilton Library, and I'd like to welcome you all here tonight for a very special, different kind of program. Christopher Bishop, our author tonight, will be joined by members of his band, Otis and the Hurricanes. They will perform a few tunes, including a song that Chris has written. It's an exciting way to kick off this author talk on improvising careers. Chris does a powerful talk about his recently published Improvising Careers, which is a hands-on guide to help readers prepare for the workplace of the future. Perfect for high school and college students, parents, and workers looking to enhance or change careers, the book provides the tools that helped Bishop to successfully navigate 8 different careers over his working life. Music was his first career. The program tonight is co-sponsored by the Wilton Economic Development Commission and the Wilton Youth Council, and we give our thanks to them. Elm Street Books is here on site tonight to sell copies of Improvising Careers, which Chris will sign after the program. The Wilton Library receives a portion of the proceeds. It is my pleasure to introduce Chris, who is a multi-talented, multidisciplinary, successfully non-linear person.
Hello everybody, and welcome. Delighted you're here. We're going to play some music, because that's what I do, one of the things I do. Just to reiterate, and then I have a talk I want to give about how to succeed at jobs that don't exist yet, based on the book. Take you through my future career toolkit, which I developed to enable you to figure out what you want to do and where to do it and who to do it with. And then take some Q&A, and then sign some books, all right? But first, all right. So the preamble to this is, when I moved to New York in 1976 to try to make a living as a bass player, run with the big dogs, I quickly learned that you need to know how to play jazz. You need to know how to play bebop, how to play the Great American Songbook, which I didn't know how to do. So I cornered a friend of mine who did know how to do it, who I went to college with, and we got a fake book, a real book. Anybody know what a real book is? Show of hands, yeah? So it's a big bound volume. Now it's digital, of course, it's on your phone or on your watch. But back then it was about this thick, and it was like the top 1,000 tunes you needed to know to be a viable musician in New York. So I sat down and learned a bunch of them, needless to say. Put my glasses on. And one of my favorites is this tune by Harry Warren. It's called There'll Never Be Another You. So we're going to render that for you. Segue, too, is that eventually I ended up playing with 2 of Dave Brubeck's sons. I was in a band with Darius and Danny Brubeck, the Brubeck brothers. And we used to come to Wilton and stay at their house, which they called the Wilton Hilton, and use it as a staging area for gigs in New England. So when we got ready to move out of New York, we were like, well, what's that town up in Connecticut where we used to hang out and rehearse with the Brubecks? There's a town called Wilton. Well, let's go look for a house there. So we ended up buying a house a quarter of a mile from Dave on Millstone Road, and we've lived there for 30 years. So anyway, so here we go. Here's this tune. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. There may be many other nights like this. I'll be standing here with someone new. There may be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, but there will never be another you. There may be other lips that I may kiss. They won't thrill me like yours used to do. 'Cause I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true when there will never, ever be another you? Hey! There may be many other nights like this. I'll be standing here with someone new. There may be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, but there will never be another you. Maybe other lips that I may kiss. They won't thrill me like yours used to do. 'Cause I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true when there will never, ever be, no, there will never, ever be, no, there will never, ever be another you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. I love that tune. Now I want to ask Joe. This is Joe Nashmi, by the way, on piano.
Thank you.
Matt Keeler on drums. And I want to introduce Otis, Chris Otis Cross, the leader of Otis and the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
He's going to join us and play guitar. I'm going to do a song by Charles Brown. Joe, I asked you to introduce it. It's about,
Well,
it's apropos
let's see.
for this setting.
Charles Brown is a American jazz player, born in Texas, went to school, graduated, actually taught chemistry after he graduated from school. Ended up going to California, playing piano in the late 40s and early 50s, and influenced many, many great jazz pianists at the time, including Nat King Cole and Ray Charles, and had his career cut short in the late 50s as rock and roll came in, because he had like the cool West Coast jazz blues sound. And he just kind of got steamrolled by the rock and roll thing, and ended up in working as a property manager, working in a maintenance guy in a building, I believe in Chicago, until one of the great ladies of American music, Bonnie Raitt, found him, took him out of retirement, and brought him on the road with her. And his career was revived in the 1980s to the point where he was nominated for several Grammys, and resuscitated his career and his whole sense of purpose and pride in his music. So this is a song by Charles Brown called New Orleans Blues. Going down to New Orleans, gonna go down on Rampart Street. Going down to New Orleans, gonna go down on Rampart Street. Till I find my pretty baby, I'm gonna ask every soul I meet. Been to Kansas City, hopped a freight train to St. Joe. Been to Kansas City, hopped a freight train to St. Joe. Till I find my pretty baby, I'm gonna go from door to door. Come on, Otis, help me find her. Yeah, Otis. Been to Kansas City. Been to San Antonio. Been to San Francisco. I'm like a rolling stone. I keep rambling. I'm so all alone, it seems. If anybody sees my pretty baby, please bring her back to New Orleans. New Orleans.
Yeah. Smoking Joe.
Thank you.
That's a great tune, huh?
Otis
All right,
on
so
guitar.
one more. So the story behind this is we were doing a gig, I think it was Sailfest in New London, and they said, "You guys have any original tunes?" with the band, Otis and the Hurricanes. And we had some, and I said, "Well, let's write a tune." So I made up a story and wrote a tune about it. The story is we were on the road. This is totally fictitious, but makes for a good setup. We tell the audience, "Yeah, we're on the road for like 2 weeks doing one-nighters one after another. We're feeling beat." We end up in this club in Lake Charles, and this woman comes up to us at the end of the set and says, "You guys look like you could use a boost of some kind. I mean, you look kind of wasted. I got just the thing to fix what ails you," she said. "So come back to my cabin in the bayou, and we'll put something together." She called it Alligator Souffle. So I said, "Well, let's write a song about something like that." So this requires audience participation. I don't know if you have seen the band before, but when we get to the chorus, we're going to ask you all to do the alligator jaws, right? So we go, "Alligator Souffle," and you'll see us do it. Well, yeah, there you go. So we need the alligator jaws when we get to the chorus. You'll see it and hear it. I want good alligatoring here in Wilton, right? All right, here we go. Crazy little thing goes like this. Oh, 1, 2, 3. It was a hot, steamy night when I got the recipe. Yeah. You know, a pretty Cajun queen laid it out for me. She said, "Now listen, son, you've only got to take one bite. That's all you need. Now it's gonna make you up straight and make you feel all right." Yeah, 'cause anytime you need to chase the blues away, whip on up a batch of my alligator souffle. Yeah, you got it. The alligator souffle, yeah. Now it might take a bit of time to track down everything you're gonna need to find a catfish bone and a pinch of gree-gree. Then you gotta stir it all up in a big old pot. Hey! And then you got to bake it on low until it gets real hot. Yeah, 'cause anytime you're having just a terrible day, whip on up a batch of my alligator souffle. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the alligator souffle. All right, come on over to play the guitar. Hey! Oh, oh, oh. Now I told you everything you need to know. And if you want to try a taste, see me after the show. Well, yeah, 'cause there ain't nobody doubt how it's gonna make you feel. Nobody doubt it, baby. You'll be the main top dog and you're the real big wheel. Yeah, 'cause anytime nothing seems to go your way, whip on up a batch of my alligator souffle. Yeah. The alligator souffle, yeah, that's it. Yeah, the alligator souffle, yeah, the alligator souffle. Do you know? Oh, the alligator souffle. There, one more time. The alligator souffle. Here we go. Yeah. Well done. Thank you, audience. Bravo. So how about a hand for the band? Yeah. All right, so now we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to do a talk here. Here comes. This is Tess, by the way, who's running all the AV. How about a hand for Tess? All right. We're recording. Tell a couple jokes. We did a gig last night, actually. Yeah, we did. With Otis. Yeah, so otisandthehurricanes.com. If you're not on our list, go there, check out the website, sign up. All right, we're cool. And now, probably the main reason some of you came is this talk. It's based on this book. So talk a little bit about the book during the course of this, but let Otis get his gear off of here. By way of introduction, I've been navigating 8 different careers over the past 50 years. I describe myself as a nonlinear, multimodal careerist. I have a degree in German literature from Bennington College. That was my major. I minored in music. I'll show you some pictures of the various careers that I think are pretty entertaining. But I sort of had this revelation about how I'd navigated them and thought, well, what if I could sort of codify this and put this in some kind of book and or toolkit so people could benefit from this experience that I've had. Because I think it's been unique. All right, one more moment. Otis, get his guitar. Yeah, it's a school night, so he's gonna, the wife is pacing the floor. When is Otis getting home? I know he's got that gig up in Wilton. One more. All right, so let's talk about the agenda. So I put together a format for this to run a show. Again, I'm going to give you this talk, take you through this future career toolkit at the end, and then do some Q&A. Right? So think about questions. Let's have it be a conversation at the end. Who is this guy? So a little bit of backstory on me. My sort of 3 meta messages, which are chase the maelstrom, own the learning, find your passion, and then the toolkit. So, whoops, something's feeding back. Tess, make sure the mics are off that shouldn't be on. That was me. Okay, so who is this guy? So this is a collage of me in various careers. The upper left, 1973, I was in a band called McKendree Spring, getting ready to open for the Eagles. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. We did lots of tours. I opened for Frank Zappa, for Fleetwood Mac. Did 3 albums with this band. The band broke up. I moved to New York. This is me at CBGB's in my leather pants with my Steinberger bass, playing with my trio. I then, to get off the road, I ended up in the jingle business, writing music for television commercials. I played bass and sang on the first Kit Kat jingle. Give me a break, oh, give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. That was pretty cool because you get residuals when you sing on it, every time it's on TV, a check appears in your mailbox. It's remarkable. I did a TEDx talk along the way. I taught myself to be a web producer, worked at a couple of seminal agencies in New York City, and then much to my surprise, got hired by IBM into corporate internet programs, worked at IBM for 15 years in several different roles, a couple of stints at corporate headquarters. I've been very involved in the quantum space for the past 5 years. The Economist hires me to be the master of ceremonies for their commercializing quantum event in London. This is me interviewing Zulfi Alam, who's the corporate vice president of quantum at Microsoft. I did a podcast with him as well. I speak at universities. This is me at Bayes Business School in London. And I also am the musical director for a band called Ion Maiden. Take off an Iron Maiden. And it's a bunch of quantum execs who are musicians, really good musicians. So anyway, it's been interesting so far. People ask, what was the compelling event that led you to kind of get into this conversation about technology and careers and jobs and skills? Was there a seminal moment? And I say, yes, there was. And it was this. In 1985, music became data. And by that I mean the advent of samplers and sequencers, tools like the Lindrum and a Kai sampler. You could record timbres of instruments digitally, store them on in this case, like a Winchester hard drive or on a floppy disk, and summon them to a keyboard and make music as information. So I had to learn how to do this. What went from sessions like this in these beautiful studios in Midtown Manhattan, making records and jingles and whatever, real musicians in a live space, turned into this, the synclavier, which was a state-of-the-art digital musical instrument. You could sample timbres like at 100K in stereo, and they sounded good. I mean, the quality was amazing. So I bought a Mac Plus and learned how to compose on a computer. You see that theme going through this talk, but the idea is transferable skills and the need for net new skills, which is a concept that you're all going to be dealing with as you go through your career work life, if you will, right? So it was an amazing experience. I actually had my first real job at age 40, working at a jingle house in New York, running a synclavier. I was answering the phone at first and typing AFM contracts, but I quickly, moved into the studio and learned how to run this device because I knew how to compose, I knew how to produce, but I didn't know how to do it digitally, and then I had to learn how to do it. So, 3 meta messages for today's learners and anyone interested in changing careers or lifestyles. Chase the maelstrom. For my general concept around this is chase the maelstrom, find the chaos, go for the mayhem. Right? By that I mean go where they don't know what it is. The royal they, in this case, are existing business models. And you can help create it, invent it, nurture it, exploit it, get compensated, right? That's sort of what I've been doing for 50 years, if you will. Humans have been using technology, to solve problems for literally thousands of years since we were wandering around in the Pleistocene wilderness, and the technology of the day was a long stick with a sharp end. That was the technology, right? And you're trying to kill something bigger than us that we could eat and make clothing out of. And today, 2025, we're manipulating subatomic particles. This is a quantum lab where they're using photons to share communication data, securely, quickly, immutably. It's technology. It's all down to some technological advancement, right? Some people would say physics has driven all human progress for the past 10,000 years. Some people say biology. But that's the idea, right? That's the meta theme. So any history buffs in the audience? So I have a pop quiz for you. So any guesses about who said, I want to ask you who said this, when they said it, and what they said it about? I'll do my best. I'll give you a hint. My best female British accent. I refuse to issue a patent for fear it will put my poor subjects out of work. So any guesses about who might have said this? Don't be shy. It won't be on the test. You're among friends. It's all good. Yeah. Well, it predates her by quite a bit, actually, but that's certainly, yeah. So she's obviously a monarch. It's a she. She's a monarch, right? So we're going to have to belabor it. But the idea is, it was this woman, Queen Elizabeth I, and she said it about a mechanized knitting machine, which looked like this, and she said it in 1589, 430 years ago. People were having conversations about technology disrupting existing business models, right? So you might say Elon Musk and Sam Altman are having similar conversations about AI today. Again, it's a pattern matching, right? That's the meta message here. So 3 points to make, aphorism, data points for your next cocktail party. Estimates are, common research contends that 85% of the jobs that today's learners are going to do in the next decade haven't been invented yet, for context. They're going to use technology that doesn't exist today, implantable medical devices, holographic learning tools. Here's a vertical farm. Here's a autonomous electronic drone, rechargeable. And they're going to use it to solve problems we don't yet know are problems, right? How do you manage an aquaculture environment? How do you set up habitations on non-terrestrial environments, right? So I always say when we're talking about technology that doesn't exist, get ready for an out of the mouths of babes comment from a grandchild or granddaughter saying, "You mean you had to carry something around in your pocket to talk to grandma? Wow, how lame. That must have been really unpleasant and inconvenient." It's like, well, that's all we had. That's back in 2025. That was, we had to deal with it. You know, it had to suffice. So the message, too, is that many innovative companies that are providing jobs and have career needs didn't exist several years ago, right? So SpaceX privatizing the space economy, that's a pretty remarkable transformation. DoorDash, anybody use DoorDash to get food delivered to their house or office? I mean, we do, right? So that wasn't a company 5 years ago. Tissue Labs, this is a company that's using bioprinting techniques to create vascular tissue in hearts and lungs. 3IQ gives clients exposure to digital assets, if you will. The two most interesting ones, I think, are these two. So everybody uses Uber, right? Anybody use Uber? Yeah, of course, right? So Uber is the largest transportation company in the world, and they don't own any vehicles. It's a totally new model, right? The other example, Airbnb, the largest hospitality company in the world, they don't own any rooms. They don't own any real estate, right? So new models, implications for jobs, careers, skill needs. We have to talk about AI. So just a quick snapshot of here's the top 50 AI tools, which translates to companies, potential opportunities for you or kids or grandkids to work, right? A new landscape around employment opportunities. So these are, I've circled some of those. So I use ChatGPT, I use Perplexity, I've used Claude, Midjourney for image creation, Otter for AI note-taking and Zoom meetings. Really amazing tools, right, that are out here now, again, that represent career opportunities. Many jobs today didn't exist 5 years ago. So prompt engineer, before November of 2022, that wasn't a job. Before ChatGPT, nobody was hiring prompt engineers. Now it's like a real in-demand skill. I have friends who did marketing roles at IBM who are now prompt engineers. That's the shingle they're hanging out to get work. Crypto asset strategist, how do you put together strategies for managing Bitcoin and Ethereum and stable coins? Quantum algorithm developer. I work with a lot of people in the quantum space. This is just one of the skills needed to drive these new quantum business models. One of my favorites, drone choreographer. That wasn't a job 5 years ago, right? Putting together drone shows for sporting events and rock shows, right? So just for context. And these are, again, I don't want to belabor this, but these are real people doing these jobs today. Many of these people are friends of mine. Doing really interesting work. So Nina Cove, she's the artistic director at Drone Sky Shows. I was imagining, like, what was that conversation like with her mother? Mom, I want to be a drone choreographer. Honey, that isn't a job. There isn't work doing that. I mean, no one's going to hire you to do that. She's now running a team at the Drone Sky Shows. This is one of my favorites. This is Patrick Thayer. He's a bioprinting solutions architect. He's writing software so they can print hearts, like in 3 to 5 years, using this plasma material in a additive manufacturing kind of environment. Pretty wild. I just met this woman recently, Ya-Ting Liu. Her title got blurred somehow, but it's Chief Public Realm Officer. So a meta conversation around everything involved in sort of public spaces in New York and vehicles moving through them and people using them, how they use them, how they support them. So just a range of new skills, people doing real jobs. The other one is Will Zhang. He's sort of the Elvis Presley of quantum. He's managing director at Quantination, which is the seminal quantum venture capital firm based in Geneva. That wasn't a job 5 years ago. People weren't investing millions in quantum companies. So the next pop quiz. Bureau of Labor Statistics put out a survey a few years ago guessing how many jobs today's learners would have by the time they're 38. So any guesses? 10? Good guess, yeah. Other guesses? Higher, lower? 8? Wow, okay. So the thing that's outstanding to me as regards this particular slide and this set of information is this is a public sector agency, right? This is government. They have no agenda. This isn't McKinsey saying, hey, we got jobs for you. Check out this cool thing. It's like, this is what we found. Here's the data. Do what you want with it. So they contend that you'll have 8 to 10 jobs by the time you're 38, right? So standard mean deviation indicates some will have more, some will have less. But that's sort of the general consensus based on this public sector analysis. So I think that's exciting. I view that as like cool. You have to do lots of different things, right? Where are these new careers created? Where do they exist? Where's this intersection? Where's the nebula? I contend it's the connection between existing disciplines and then emerging disciplines. And that intersection is where these new careers, jobs that don't exist yet, are being created. So here's a couple of examples just to get you thinking about it. So mechanical engineering and chemistry. Anybody into mechanical engineering? Any mechanical engineers study that in school? So the 3 chemists who won the Nobel Prize, I think in 2016, won it for nano machines, 10 to the minus 9, creating these miniature devices, right? So you might want to become a nanopharmacist. This is an artist rendering of a nanobot that you would ingest that would break up the plaque in your arteries, for example, zooming through your incredible journey, that movie, right? But there are companies that are working on these kinds of solutions. So maybe you study mechanical engineering and pharmacology to be able to deliver medicine right to the tumor or the wound or whatever, directly, personalized medicine, the ability to create devices like this. How about hospitality and astrophysics? Those seem like unlikely disciplines to connect, right? But there's a company, of course, based in California, Orbital Assembly Corporation, that's proposing to build a space hotel that'll have 400 rooms, a cinema, a research lab. So one of the jobs might be, how do you figure out how to mix and serve a martini in microgravity? I don't know, that's like something you got to figure out. Someone's going to have to do that, right? This would be kind of cool, wouldn't it be, get a room in the space hotel? So we'll see where that goes. But again, big picture thinking around connecting those disciplines. Theater and data analytics. This one has some audio, so bear with me. But the idea is you might want to be a motion capture director. Check out this scene. Yikes. Okay, cut. So figure out how to put those suits on, where the lights go, where the motion capture should be, how you capture that data, how you then manipulate it to make it into a viable piece of footage that you can put in a film. So people always ask me, is it just about tech? Well, it's about art as well. So this is just a peripheral example, if you will. Okay, so that's the chase the maelstrom, find the chaos, go for the mayhem. And it's out there. Look for what's on the edge. The second meta message is own the learning. So we have to stop thinking about education as something that happened in the past. Right? It's something that goes on your whole life. It's going to go on. It's not going to stop. You got to learn, unlearn, and relearn. You're going to have transferable skills. Again, my example of being a bass player in New York, but not knowing how to run a computer. What the heck is that? And having to figure it out. So I could transfer my skills as a composer and arranger and producer, but I had to use the state-of-the-art technology at the time, right? So this is one of my favorite quotes. This is David Blake. He's the CEO of a company called Degreed. They create tools that connect publicly available learning assets to learning management systems in corporations. His contention is the future doesn't care how you became an expert. Like it's on you. You can do it. You have the power to do it. Lots of sources, right? So Coursera is the 800-pound gorilla, but MIT and Harvard offer courseware. Khan Academy, sure you know about that. Udemy, Udacity, lots of ways to get information. The challenge is there's lots of ways to get information. And unlikely sources as well. So I go to Wikipedia when I'm looking for sort of historical data or information that's sort of, to some degree, irrefutable or that people aren't messing with, and as a general rule that scholars put in and update. LinkedIn Learning has lots of courseware, both creative and business that's available. YouTube, I have a friend who rebuilt the engine in his Ford Explorer using YouTube videos. Let's see, undo the screw here. Okay, turn this on, take the head gasket off. I mean, you can learn how to play rock and roll guitar. It's amazing. Certainly TEDx and TED Talks have great information. I mean, Sir Ken Robinson, listening to people like that on TED. And then The Economist has an app called Espresso. They update it 3 times a day, The World in Brief. So lots of ways. The challenge is doing triage on the deluge, right, on the tsunami, figuring out, prioritizing. We'll talk a little about that in the toolkit. There are also nano degrees now. So the ability to learn a niche skill that's applicable in the real world right now where there's a need. So Udacity offers these nano degrees, industry credentials. MIT offers something called a MicroMaster's certificate across a range of skills. Right here's a supply chain management course you can take and get certified. Harvard through edX offers verified certificate of achievement. Again, the idea is to put these on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume or share with a potential employer to show you know how to do something specific based on the job rec, right, what they're looking for. There are also alternatives to college. Someone asked me about, do I have to go to college? No, you don't have to go to college. Here's a couple of examples. One is the Thiel Fellowship, sponsored by Peter Thiel. It's been around, I think it's been around 2011. So founded by Peter Thiel, it's a 2-year program where they encourage students to drop out of school, right, or not go to college. And they'll give you $200,000 and 2 years of mentorship with investors and scientists and founders. And so far they've generated, the slide's cut off, but they've generated $750 billion in value. Companies like Anthropic and Ethereum came out of this program. So I encourage you to explore that if you're interested in something other than college. Another example is what they call the Meritocracy Fellowship, which Palantir just announced. And they're trying to get kids to leave high school and start companies or work in their company, right? The great article in the Wall Street Journal. Here's the URL if you want to take a picture of this, or if you Google it, you can see what this is. But their contention is they believe in the power of young Americans to solve hardest problems, not sometime, but today, now, right? And this is pretty, damning, but their contention is the college industrial complex wants you on their timeline 4 years of prerequisites, debt, and indoctrination. So their take is let's cultivate exceptional talent that's often overlooked, and those with the highest aptitude deserve, an advantage, a set of challenges, not curriculum. So a couple of examples, and there are other ways to do this, to not go to college if you have the idea to work in another setting or start your own company or do something in a fellowship kind of internship role. There's lots of these kinds of opportunities that are emerging. Okay, the final slide on this is from Laszlo Bock. He was the former CHRO, right, Chief People Officer at Google for many years. And he says the world only cares about and pays off on, what you can do with what you know. And it doesn't care how you learned it. It doesn't matter where you got the information or, did you get it in a job? Did you get it like from a friend? Did you get it through an internship? Did you get it at church? Did you get it at camp? Did you get it from a friend? And this is going to be true no matter where you go to work. That's going to happen your whole entire life. As long as you know how to do what they need you to do. I mean, I got hired into IBM not because I played with Robert Palmer or had a cool hairstyle or wore pointy shoes. I got hired because the woman needed someone who knew how to produce websites in a corporate setting. And with all lack of modesty, in 1998, there weren't a lot of people who knew how to do that. So she hired me on the spot to come work at Big Blue. Baffling, but it worked out. Okay, so final slide in this section is follow your passion. So I recently went to 92nd Street Y. You guys ever go to 92nd Street Y? Do you know those programs? Yeah, they have incredible programs, speakers and music. And anyway, Ray Kurzweil was speaking there, right? Authorist, futurist, inventor, conjured the singularity, the idea that at some point machines will be sentient. And his latest book is The Singularity is Nearer When We Merge with AI. So I went to hear him speak. It was a fascinating conversation. The interviewer said to him, what do you tell your 10-year-old grandson? And the standard rejoinder might be coming from him would be, we'll follow AI or get into quantum or, work in the space economy or, check out like additive manufacturing or bio IT. No, his answer was, follow your passion. Like do what makes you happy. Do what gets you excited. Do what, you think is interesting. You know, that's ultimately how you be successful. So the net of all that is, you know, do what your gut tells you is something you're interested in doing. All right? So that's the opening part of this. Do you want to pause for a sec? Any questions about any of that before we get into the toolkit? Yeah, does that make sense? I know that was a lot of information to give you, to absorb it, react to it. Yeah? I do, yeah, I can share that with you for sure. Thank you. All right, well, so let's get into the toolkit. So, oh, you have a question? Okay, yeah. Yeah. An acting degree, okay. Yeah, is she going on auditions? I would assume, you know? She's waitressing, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, a famous, yeah. 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 So a woman's asking about a granddaughter who graduated from college with a degree in acting. So first of all, you know, if she does it because she's got to do it, then she's got to do it. I mean, for me, when I was a bass player, I could not do it. It was like breathing and spell checking. You know, you do it, you can't. Well, I still play the bass. I mean, I was still doing it, but I transitioned to doing other things that allowed me to live in Wilton and, you know, and live in a comfortable way. The other thing I would say is there are lots of adjacent and ancillary skill sets in every discipline, in every vertical, in every business, right? So she may not be Gwyneth Paltrow, but she could be Gwyneth Paltrow's assistant, or she could work in wardrobe. She could work in the booking side. She could work in production. I mean, you know, it takes a village to put that kind of stuff together, big shows or whatever it is. So those are options, and yeah. So you know, and sort of follow where the green dots go, right? Where is she getting a positive response? And again, you need all those skills to run a business at a meta level, right? It's not just the stars. Yeah. Other questions before I go on? No? Okay. Well, let's do the toolkit. So the genesis of the toolkit is I was giving one of these lectures at a millennial workplace in New York, and I sort of truncated versions, but this kind of content. And at the very end, I said, any questions? And a young woman stood up and she says, okay, so how do we do it? Like, oh, that's a good question. I really hadn't put that together. So I got together with a friend of mine who's an ideation guru. He does creativity sessions for big clients like Walmart and Louis Vuitton. And we put together this toolkit. So these 3 tools that I call my future career toolkit, voice, antenna, and mesh. And when I do this in lecture settings at universities or even in enterprise environments, you know, I time it out. I give people 3 minutes or 5 minutes to kind of come up with the answers to these tools. But for the sake of this session, I'll just take you through how it works. And I have a PDF I can share with you of the toolkit. And I'm happy to, you know, discuss with you offline or in Zoom or whatever how it works. But the basis is, the first tool is voice. And the objective is to find your uniqueness, right? Your personal brand, your value prop, if you will. And using triggers like, what's your favorite TV show, movie, book, or game? Like, think about what that is. And what is it about that resonates with you, that gets you excited or interested? So for me, the movie I chose is Blade Runner 2049. I saw this movie 3 times. I saw it in a regular theater. I saw it in IMAX. I saw it in 3D. And it just ties to my fascination with future culture and technology, right? And the book I chose is More by Philip Coggan. He's a writer for The Economist. And it's called The World Economy from the Iron Age to the Information Age. Again, describing technology driving businesses and verticals and attendant skill needs and careers, right? So those are sort of my examples. So I would add, if we're doing this in a session, I would say take 3 minutes and write down your triggers as a starting point, right? What's your voice? How does that translate to your voice? The second tool is called antenna, and the idea is to look for where conversations are going on. So again, the good news is there are lots of sources of information. The bad news is there are lots of sources of information, right? So you got to do sort of the due diligence and the analysis and the triage to narrow it down. So I ask you to take the voice topics that you teased out and list them, and then find a source, describe it, and then put some kind of routine behind it, right? What's the frequency? How often are you going to like check it or use this as a source? So here are my examples. I sort of broke out the voice characteristics, future culture, tech, and global business. So for future culture, there's a great newsletter called Futurism that I get in my inbox every day with all kinds of really interesting content about business and technology. Futures Agency runs webinars periodically. Silicon Valley Business Journal is actually a print newspaper coming out of the South Bay, if you can believe that. Like Silicon Valley, they have a print newspaper. But it talks about executive hires and real estate transactions and company startups and who got funded. And it's a pretty interesting way to track bleeding edge tech from a business perspective. Wait, oops, go forward. BBC Click, which is now called Tech Now, but it's on once a week. And they go into like R&D labs or startups and interview founders and technicians about what they're doing in the business, what kind of technologies they're creating to drive new business models. Bloomberg Tech is on every day. It's a great show. Espresso, again, that app I mentioned before that does the world in brief 3 times a day. So those are the kind of sources. So I would ask you to do the research, put some parameters into Google or whatever, set up alerts. I have alerts for like quantum and future tech and a daily digest. See where this information is coming from. Let Google do the work, right? Set up a spider and crawl through and pull all the information and put it in an email to you. So that's the antenna piece of it. Where are these conversations going on about the topics you picked out? And then the final tool is Mesh. So this is what's called an in-map. LinkedIn used to give you a visualization of your network. So you they don't do it anymore. I think the server load didn't justify the expense. But the idea is, this might be my IBM network. The red might be musicians I play with. These might be college buddies. And the purple, green might be other futurists or whatever. But the idea is, the exercise is to find the people or companies that are leading these conversations. I always say there's always a Miles Davis in every discipline, right? People know who Miles Davis is? We're in the Brubeck room. I would assume people know that. So for the younger cohort, who's the Taylor Swift? Or maybe who's the LeBron James, right? Who's the person at the top of the function that's leading the conversations, that has innovative thinking about what this future career or job or vertical or technology might be, right? And find them. Find them on LinkedIn. Find them on the academic site if they're a professor. They probably post on academia.edu or maybe on the archive, the preprint server, or maybe they have a blog or they're on Substack, right? And my guidance, again, is to put in some parameters and track down people that align with the voice antenna process, right? So for me, future culture, this is a guy in Sweden. He's a CEO of a company called Futures Agency. Krista Svore, she's the GM of quantum software. She just moved to NVIDIA. She was at Microsoft for many years. Tom Malone is a distinguished professor at MIT Sloan. He wrote a great book called The Future of Work, by the way, if you're interested. Really fascinating. And also look for groups on LinkedIn. So here's an example, the Institute for the Future. It's a think tank in Palo Alto. They publish a lot of really great content. They run in-person seminars. You can go to Palo Alto and hang out with them or read their material. A lot of it is free on the web, right? So those are the tools. So to put it all together, the voice thing is continue to reflect on what makes you unique and knowing that it will evolve. So when I was a bass player, I was sort of known as someone who could play pop tunes and sing harmonies and memorize a dozen tunes and perform in front of 100,000 people or whatever and not blink. And now, here I am talking to you in the Brubeck room about future careers. So your voice is going to change and morph and evolve. It's happened to me at least 8 times, if not more. Antenna, be diligent about monitoring sources, again, based on your voice, and know that it's going to change. So when I was a musician, I was reading, New Musical Express and Cream magazine. When I got into the web biz, I was reading, Macworld and PC World and whatever. And now I read, the Quantum Insider and Quick Bits and content related to bleeding edge technologies. And Mesh, my admonition to students is to try to add 5 people a week to your LinkedIn profile. So if you get to Friday at 5 o'clock and you haven't added people to tomorrow, set an alarm, stop what you're doing, put down the Twitch too, Set down the Game Boy, stop binge watching on Netflix, step away from the snipe on eBay, make a cup of coffee and put some Boolean parameters into LinkedIn, you know, quantum plus New York plus pharma, and see what comes up and find people that match those criteria and reach out and connect with them. Hi, I'm Bob, I'm Betty, I'm interested in the topic you're doing. I just graduated from university, or I'm going to school, or I'm studying this. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And build your network, make it a routine, right? It's a never-ending job. You never wake up like Tuesday morning and say, okay, I've got everyone in my network that I need to know I can chill. Like, that will never, ever happen. It's an ongoing, constant process, right? So that's my perspective, and thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the future. Thank you. Well, cool. So questions, now we can do questions. Again, about where to learn, what to do, how to navigate. That was a lot of information. Yes.
You said that 85% of the jobs
Yeah.
and IBM is an interesting place. There, as they said at their big event this year, that they were throwing dog food and put bots in, and let go or remove or change 200 jobs. So what's it look like? You know, you can have 85% new jobs. What do you think the amount of jobs are going to be? I mean, there's some, like you look at like autonomous driving, 5.4 million people.
Yeah.
What do you see in that realm? What, you know, there's a lot of noise around that.
So I think the trend, I mean, at a meta level, technology always generates new jobs and consumes older jobs, right? I remember sitting next to an economist at some futurist event, and you know, someone from the podium was saying, yes, and the jobs of the future, you know, we're not doing jobs that we did 50 years ago. And his comment was, thank goodness we're not doing jobs. We're not sweeping horse poop out of the streets of New York, you know, or whatever. Like those kind, you know, jobs are going to go away and jobs are going to appear. Another example is like when they first introduced ATMs, and they thought, oh my goodness, bank tellers are going to be obsolete. But what it turned out is they were able to deliver more value by having more human interaction and let the machine like dispense the cash and let them have more strategic, high-level customer interaction that delivers more value for the vendor or the bank in this case, right? So I think it's you know, it's moving faster than ever for sure. But I think the idea, chase the maelstrom, see where it's changing and see where there are opportunities to take existing skills and learn what you don't know how to do and transfer what you do know how to do. I mean, AI is going to be, you know, it's already kind of taking over so many opportunities. But a great quote in the Harvard Business Review, you know, AI will not replace managers, but managers who use AI will replace the ones who don't. And that's true of all kinds of bleeding edge technologies. Quantum for sure. But I would encourage you, if you're interested in quantum and all, that's really, that's what's after AI in my perspective. I mean, that's going to transform everything, right? Do you know the quantum supremacy quote? Here's another cocktail party aphorism. So in 2018, Google contended that their Sycamore quantum computer solved a problem in 200 seconds that would have taken a classical computer 10,000 years to solve. So any company that's collecting and rationalizing data, which is every company that's not going out of business, is going to be impacted by quantum technologies, right? That's just computing. And the other aspects of quantum are clocks and sensors, and quantum networking, and post-quantum cryptography, when cryptographically relevant quantum computers can crack current RSA and ECC encryption protocols. That's a big business. Companies like Sandbox AQ with big government contracts, DoD, DOE, are making a lot of money helping them identify vulnerabilities in their data stores and how to protect it. Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's already happening. Like any bleeding edge technology adoption, you know, it's incremental. It's not going to be kind of flipping a switch. It's going to be, you know, aspects of value will appear in varying sectors, varying verticals, if you will. A cool example is a company called Q Control, based in Australia. They're dealing with GPS-denied environments. Are you familiar with that concept? Right, so they're areas where adversaries are jamming or faking GPS. So planes and ships can't fly or navigate accurately. So they're using quantum sensors, which leverage magnetometry and gravimetry using GPS sensors to navigate safely, because every sort of square foot of the Earth has a gravity signature, a gravity footprint. So if you can capture and analyze and rationalize those, you can navigate safely without the satellites. So that's happening today. This company's already tested it in the commercial airline setting, and there's a great medical example, quantum sensors company in the UK called Circumagnetics. They make a 3D printable wearable sensor to detect childhood epilepsy. And it's like 50 times more sensitive than typical MRIs. And kids can wear it and play and do whatever. They have to lie down and hold your breath. I mean, you know, for like kids to deal with that is annoying. So those kinds of examples are already starting to appear. But quantum computing, you know, the sort of holy grail, the one that gets the spotlight, the media darling, I'd say it's probably 3 to 5 years away before there's really fault-tolerant, error-corrected quantum computing that's extensible and widely available. IBM is focused on it. You know, they've got a lot of resources and funding behind it. And I always say to, you know, people ask me about quantum and IBM, it's like, well, I worked at IBM for 15 years. They're not doing quantum because they think it's fun. And they're not doing it because they think it's cool. They're doing it because they think there's a 45% margin in there at some point, and they're going to, like, you know, own the space or own a piece of the space and generate attributable revenue for shareholders. That's kind of how they do it. A long answer, sorry. TMI. Other questions, reactions? Yes. Hey, hi, Ginny.
Oh, okay. Hello. Yeah. Hi.
Hi there.
What do you or the sources that you follow here see or predict for our higher educational system, and how are they adapting to all of this?
Yeah, so higher education. So with all due respect, a lot of higher education is kind of outdated and frozen and classical and glacial. You know, they don't have a P&L, right? They're not obligated to make money and generate income. I think the smart ones are adapting and changing the curriculum, certainly including training for bleeding edge technologies, which are also changing. You know, you get out of school with a certain skill, and it changes within, you know, 12 to 18 months. So you've got to learn what the next iteration of whatever that is you learned in school. I think the smart ones get it. I think community colleges are focused on it for sure. I was just at an event, Emerging Tech Forum at Southern Connecticut State University and Yale, and they're trying to figure out how to tweak the curriculum and incorporate more, you know, bleeding edge capabilities into what they teach and how they teach. So but it's challenging, you know, it's hard because they have an entrenched model that kind of has been working so far. But again, all these other ways to learn skills, there are lots of really interesting alternatives to a 4-year college degree. Right? Other questions? Yes, hello.
Hi. Actually, my question might be not related to most of the people today because I'm a foreigner. I'm a H-1B holder. As you may know, that this is not a great time, very friendly time for the H-1B holders, and I just got laid off 3 weeks ago by a bank I worked for like 3 years and a half. So right now it's really hard for me. Like one of the things is like I'm really hard to get an interview even because 99% of the jobs, they're just like filtering me out because they are scared of like, am I gonna pay that $100K fee? Even though I said, no, I'm not because I've been here for 10 years. I'm happily to be a local already. I bought my own place here. I grow my life here. So, I mean, my question is like, if there's 1% of the job who did not filter me out of the H-1B thing, how am I gonna stand out as a foreigner? Yeah. Like they would like to meet me because because in reality, I would say like most of the job has been posted, especially in finance. They've been there vacant for like over 3 months. Yeah. They're not hiring anyone, but they're not willing to give me a chance to interview because they are probably thinking like, oh, this is the job market that's really preferring for us, and then We're gonna find the perfect match, like who has 100% skills as my job description, but we all know that's impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no one's perfect like that.
No.
So my question is like, how am I gonna stand out like as a visa holder who grew my life here? I love this country, love the people here.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to stay. But first of all, how can I get the interview first?
Yeah, I think the H-1B thing, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But I would
Yeah.
say, I mean, at a meta level, it's a numbers game, right? So all these companies have, again, based on my experience at IBM, they all have big job economies within the companies that change and morph depending on client needs, on competitors, on technology advancements, on market drivers or whatever. So you just got to kind of keep jiggling doorknobs, as my friend would say. You know, I'd also say, back to the chase the maelstrom thing, look for companies or organizations. Maybe it's startups, maybe it's divisions of a large company that are just getting underway, that are putting together a skunk works, that have put together a MOU with somebody, where they need people that are maybe not necessarily from the existing organization or from the general talent pool, and they're willing to hire someone who you know, has the skills, you know, but has this H-1B, you know. Yeah. 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 Well, you have to wait for the tectonic plates of the economy to kind of shift, but you have to keep poking it. You have to keep chasing it, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Another question.
I had a question when you're talking about transitioning jobs or finding the next thing, and I kind of has this feeling that as you're transitioning or as you try something, it might not work out, you know, there might be a time frame where it's not paying off yet. Do you have any advice for how to kind of weather that period, you know, psychologically also and financially,
No,
or what? Maybe prior preparation there needs to be before you
I
take
think
some steps.
taking a step back, make sure that what you're pursuing is the right thing. Maybe use the toolkit, for example. You know, maybe you could be pursuing something that maybe doesn't really resonate or isn't really like aligned with what your ultimate goal or objectives is, or maybe it is. And to be patient and always be looking for something else, right? If you're applying for a role in a certain niche or a certain skill set or a certain vertical, you know, go for it. But keep in mind, maybe there's some adjacent or ancillary skill need in an organization or in a different vertical where you could deliver value and be just as happy or almost as happy. But you know, keep pursuing it. The other thing is sort of follow the green dots, again, at a meta level. So if you're not getting a positive response and you've been chasing it for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or whatever, you know, think about where are you getting a positive response. When you have a conversation with somebody or you talk to a hiring manager, to an HR person, and someone says, oh yeah, well, you'd be great for that, or have you thought about doing this? You know, keep that in mind. The other thing is, be aware that many of these, back to your comment, many of these job recs consist of two things based on my experience. They're either a description of what the person did in the role before you know, better for worse, or they're what's called a purple squirrel, meaning there's nobody on the planet who has those skills. You know, we're looking for someone who has a PhD in medieval Irish literature, and then they started a company and sold it to Google, and then they spent 5 years in the Peace Corps in Nairobi, and you know, that's the perfect candidate. Like, no, man, there's nobody like that. You're crazy out of here. You'll never find somebody like that. So the way that works is, for me, you go to the interview. I had this situation at IBM in corporate headquarters, and the woman who was interviewing me for this comms job in HR said, well, you know how to do this, so we're going to put you in front of this big financial planning project for U.S. employees. She said, you don't know how to do this, create what's called a manager package. So we'll train you how to do that. We'll teach you, you know, it'll take a while, but we'll give you the framework. And she said, this other part of the job rec, we'll get Kathy to do because she knows how to do it, and it'll be a stretch assignment for her. So that's, you know, very often how they parse out jobs in big corporate settings, right? They'll give you the opportunity to learn something, again, transferable skills and a delta, You know how to do this. We'll teach you how to do this. We'll give this other piece of the job back to somebody else. So that can happen as well, right? Other questions? Yes.
Hi, I was just curious, and apologize, I don't know much about your background before tonight, so thank you so much for being here. And curious of your different changes, how much have you done as either a solopreneur or an entrepreneur on your own and maybe had to raise capital and venture and things like that, or versus working for other people?
Well, so I've never done that. I've never had to raise capital or, not an LLC, but I'm an inveterate networker. So that's how I sort of find opportunities. And I learned the skill, again, I contend when I first moved to New York, I quickly learned that getting the job is the job. I mean, in Manhattan, there's 100 bass players that can do what's needed, So I had to network and find people, producers, artists, creative directors at agencies, whatever, who would hire me, get someone who thought I was cool and had the chops and the feel or whatever and the sound. Again, my general guidance is network, like constantly. So again, the risk of sounding immodest, I have over 17,000 followers on LinkedIn. And by the way, connect with me on LinkedIn. And I try to add 10 people a day to my profile because I want audience for my podcasts. I want people to hire me to speak. I want people to give opportunities to be a lecturer or quantum events. I do quantum events all over the world. I was just in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I've been spoken in Singapore and Paris. So looking for those kinds of opportunities to be busy. So yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah. So again, I would encourage them to check out the toolkit. I can share this PDF with you. But getting a sense of what it is that he likes or is interested in sort of at a more meta level, at a higher perspective, and then think about where people are having that conversation and connecting with people, starting to build out his network and thinking about what the other opportunities were. A Google search will pull up things like the Teal Fellowship and the mentorship program at Palantir, and there are many others, and see if any of those pique his interest. Like if there's something he'd like to do, take a year off and do something in a service role, or take an internship and go work at a quantum company in the UK or whatever. Encourage him to explore with the realization that this is, the model is changing. The days of going to IBM and working for 35 years, I'm pointing at my dear friend Bob, who did that, actually, are over. That's like history. I mean, that's not happening anymore. So, but the good news is the Bureau of Labor Statistics survey, you can 8 to 10 jobs because there's lots of really cool, interesting stuff to do, right? So I try to get him thinking along those lines, right? Yes.
So my question is pretty straightforward. Which of the major companies in semiconductors and AI, which of them will be the most successful in that field, do you think? And which of those are hiring employees actively the most? So
bordering on stock advice, which I don't want to be held responsible for. It's hard to say. I mean, I would follow two things. Follow the money, right? Where's the money going? And I say that, again, like students looking for work, when I'm talking to students who are studying quantum information science, I always say, follow Angel's List or look in the Wall Street Journal and see where the funding, where the VCs think there's an opportunity, right? Because again, they're doing it to get a return on investment. So PsiQuantum, this Palo Alto-based quantum company, just got like $900 million, right? Series B or whatever, round 4 or something. But what that translates to certainly is OpEx and CapEx, but it means headcount as well. So like, I see Anthropic maybe, you know, just got a funding round, or I saw that NVIDIA and Quantum are partnering, IBM and Cisco are going to set up a quantum network. So where the activity is, that's again, the perspective to keep in mind, big picture around where is the money going and where the client's going, right? So if they announce they just signed a deal with company X, and it's a big deal, and it's a 5-year contract or an MOU, understanding to do business, that's what I would say. I think it's still early days, even though AI is getting commoditized, right? It's everywhere, and ultimately will be invisible, just the way electricity is invisible. You plug in your toaster, and you don't care where the juice comes from. You just want the toast to come out. AI will be a similar kind of thing.
Yeah. Just to kind of follow up with that, like, do you think like traditional banks are like having a race to find out who will like efficiently use AI the best, or like, do you feel like also like big tech firms are like fighting out to like have the best version of AI, and which ones do you think might work out more so than others, I guess?
Well, I think it's hard to say like banks or even make it sort of vertical specific. I think it's more discipline specific, right? So any big company has people that are in biz dev, that are in marketing communications, that are in PR, that are to some degree in UX design, that are into monitoring and managing policy and regulatory conversations. So it's going to be, the AI applications are going to be niche based on disciplines, right? Based on skills. It won't be sort of banking writ large, or, like it'll be people with skills in, say, PR in a banking environment could then take those skills and do it in a technology environment, or in a pharma environment, or in a media and entertainment environment, or whatever, right? So I think that's the way to think about AI skills. Like that chart I showed him is like, that's the top 50, and there are literally hundreds of these tools that are becoming more and more kind of discipline specific, right? So if you wanted to take notes during your Zoom meeting, there's half a dozen tools that'll do that. So that kind of thing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah. How are we doing on time? Are we okay for?
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. Who gets the last question? Drum roll. No? Well, again, connect with me on LinkedIn. My contact information is here. Send me an email. I tweet sometimes on X. I go put tweet on X, or whatever the appropriate qualifier is. And I'd love to continue this conversation. It's something I'm passionate about and excited about. So,
Chris, if I may just interject one piece of information. The Wilton Library has LinkedIn Learning for free.
Wow.
I guess it would be Wilton residents. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's
Okay,
a great.
so
I actually have a
that's-
course in there called Future Proofing Your Data Science Career that I did for them like 5 years ago,
okay.
just before the pandemic. I flew home from California, and the pandemic was here. Like, yikes. I think it's still available. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks very much. All right.
And Elm
Okay.
Street Books is outside selling Chris's book. And I'm sure Chris will be pleased to sign it for you.